Good morning, children. If you can see, today's topic that we will be discussing is active voice and passive voice. Okay? Now, when I say voice, it is not the voice which you are hearing right now, my voice or your voice. Okay? When I say voice, in a sentence, voice refers to something to do with the verb. I'll explain to you what aspect of the verb. Okay. Now let's go back a little bit into our classes. Okay. Recently we covered the topic tense, isn't it? In tense, we learned when an action was, is, or will be performed by the subject. All right. So here we discussed when an action is performed. Okay, so when we talk about action is equivalent to verb in English language. So in the same manner, voice is how an action is performed by the subject. So the question how comes here. So how is the action performed? It is directly or indirectly. Okay. So when an action is performed directly by the subject, it is called active voice. And in the sentence, when the action is shown to be indirectly performed by the subject, then it becomes passive voice. Okay, when I say actively and indirectly, directly and indirectly, I'll explain to you with an example and then you'll be able to understand. Okay, now I'm repeating again, voice is how an action is performed by the subject, directly or indirectly. Okay, when the action is performed directly, it is active voice, and when in the sentence it is shown that the action is performed indirectly by the subject, then it becomes passive voice. So the structure of the sentence thus becomes subject, verb, object. Okay, so here is an example of active voice. So your dad becomes the subject, washed becomes your verb, and the car becomes your object. Okay, so that is your active voice. So in this form, it is in this sentence is in active voice, wherein our subject is in the beginning, a verb is in the center, and the car, which is the object, is at the back. So dad is the subject, washed is the verb, and the car is the object. Now in passive voice, what happens is the car, which is the object, takes the place of the subject, and dad, which is the subject, takes the place of the car. So here it's like this. In passive voice, it will be the car was washed by dad. So our structure will be object plus verb plus subject. In a passive voice, the structure of the sentence will be object, verb, subject. So the car, which was the object in active voice, comes here right in the front. Was washed will remain there. See, if you see in a passive voice, our verb is always accompanied with a helping verb. So was is a helping verb. So was washed, and then our subject dad comes there. But the word by tells us that the action is being indirectly being performed by the subject, which is dad. Because normally, according to our rules of English language, all right, our subject is always in the beginning of the sentence. However, in a passive voice, the subject comes in the end, okay, so the sentence begins with the object, the verb, and then the subject. Okay, so this is how our passive voice looks like. Okay, so the first example I'm repeating again here. Dad washed the car is an example of active voice, while the car was washed by Dad is an example of passive voice. Okay, so look at the structure. Did you get it? So I have written OVS. So it's just short form. O stands for object, V stands for verb, and S stands for subject. Okay, and it is very, very easy to identify because in an in an active voice sentence, okay, in an active voice sentence, we will just have subject, verb, object. There is no place for a helping verb. Okay, and here, see, we have in our passive voice, our verb will always have a helping verb in the front, and to show that the action is being performed indirectly by the subject, there will always be the word by in front of our subject. Okay, so I hope you understood this. So this is the concept of active and passive. This is how you identify the active and passive voice.